Hello everybody, my name is Jonah, and welcome to the first video in a multi-part series where I aim to help my local Pokemon League and any other Pokemon players try and get better at the game by first developing a basic understanding of Pokemon. So, for episode 1, we're going to be talking about the term IVs. This is a very popular term among competitive Pokemon players because it is an extremely important component, but it can be overlooked when trying to build a good competitive team. For starters, let's talk about what IVs are. So, for starters, IVs are individual values and every single Pokemon has them. IVs affect all 6 stats that a Pokemon has, and IVs exist on a range from 0 to 31. IVs, individual values, can influence how a Pokemon operates very much. So, take for instance this Pokemon Iron Bundle. It has an IV stat of 31, which we can see that because of best. Don't worry, I will be going into what those words mean later for the IVs. Now, this Iron Bundle is extremely good because it has 6 IVs. It has max IVs in all 6 of its stats, and it is the fastest it can be because of that 31 IV stat. Meaning, in most cases, it's going to outspeed most other Iron Bundle. But an important part about IVs is being able to unlock and check them. In the bottom right portion of my screen, you will see something called the Judge function. The Judge function will allow you to check a Pokemon's IVs. With this, you will have 6 different names, or 6 different words that will indicate the IV range of a Pokemon. Here is an infographic on what describes a Pokemon's IVs. I've retrieved this image from thegamer.com, and I will post a link in the description if you wish to go read further on the judging function. But once we beat our copy of Scarlet or Violet, we will be able to go talk to a Nurse Joy, and they will give us the function Judge, which allows us to look at a Pokemon's IVs. And when we open up our PC box, as you'll see in my bottom right, there is a Judge function. By pressing the plus button, we will then be able to get to see 6 words that pop up, 6 potential words that pop up for a Pokemon, and these words indicate their IV distribution. So, for something like my Iron Bundle here, I got it from a 7-star Terra raid, and what that means is the Pokemon that gets caught from that raid will have the highest possible IVs in every single stat. So for this Iron Bundle, it has an IV of 31 in every single stat, meaning that it has the highest possible base number that it can have for every single one of its stats. Now, let's say it had Fantastic in all of its stats. It would be 1 less, meaning that in most cases it would probably be about 1 stat point lower for a Pokemon, and that 1 stat number can do an insane, that it can change up the math that is involved with calculating how much damage a Pokemon can do. It could determine knocking out or not knocking out a Pokemon. That's why IVs are so important. Usually we like to go for a 31 because it's the highest number. However, in some cases that's not what we want. See, something like a Kingambit, mine has a no good IV speed stat. That's because this Kingambit would work really well under something like Trick Room, meaning in Trick Room, it would be able to go first more often than not when looking at other Pokemon, like my Iron Bundle, because it's slower. Trick Room is a component, or is a mechanic in the game that inverts the move order of Pokemon because it allows the slower ones to go first. So, despite 31 being the best number for IVs, it's not always the best option. So, that leads us into the next part. Now that we know about the basics of IVs, is there a way that we can change them? The answer is yes. However, the only way that we can make an IV stat change is if it is below 31, so that means it's not the best stat it can possibly be, and the only way the stat can go is up. So, how do we do that? How do we make a Pokemon stat go up? In Pokemon Sun and Moon and onward, there's this great mechanic called bottle capping or hyper training. And what these bottle caps do is, if you have this silver bottle cap, it will make a Pokemon's IV, only one of them, go from whatever it is, 0 to 30, to a maxed out 31 IV. And a gold bottle cap will take all 6 stats of a Pokemon and put them from whatever they are all the way to their best. Now, when we use these bottle caps, we don't have our wording changed to best like we do in Iron Bundle. Instead, we have it become the word hyper trained. In this case, I used a gold bottle cap on my Raging Bolt Paradox Raikou, and I made all of its stats from whatever they were before to hyper trained. This means that they are now at an IV of 31. So, where do we go to use these bottle caps? Well, in the base Paldea, or in the Paldea region, we go to a place called Montenevera, which is right here, up in northern Paldea. And when we go to the Pokemon Center, you'll spawn right around here, and just walk behind it, and you will find this NPC. Talk to him, and he mentions something called hyper training. When we talk to him, he'll offer to hyper train our Pokemon in exchange for bottle caps. So, for example, I would like to boost this shiny Dratini I caught. See how its IVs aren't that good? Well, I can either use silver bottle caps or a gold bottle cap. But I'll use silver bottle caps. So, I want this Dratini to be a very good physical attacker, so I don't really need to worry about its special attack. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 silver bottle caps on this Dratini, and I'm not going to worry about its special attack stat because this Dratini, I don't want it to be a special attacker. I want it to be a physical. But, if I want it to become a special attacker, I could always make it one in the future. So, let's start the training process. It's very quick and simple. It requires nothing. It requires you as the trainer to do nothing. It's very helpful. So, something else that I haven't mentioned yet is how we get bottle caps. Well, bottle caps are actually pretty easy to get. Scattered throughout the Paldea region, we have these stores called Delibird Presents. They're found at Lavencia, Mesagoza, generally the larger cities in Paldea. But in these Delibird Present stores, they sell bottle caps. They sell silver bottle caps for 20,000 Pokédollars. It's not too difficult to get 20,000 Pokédollars, but if you are trying to level up, or if you're trying to max out the IVs on a bunch of Pokemon, that will cost you quite a lot. Now, on to the next part. Should we be bottle capping every single stat? Not always, but if you have an excess of them, sure, why not? As mentioned previously, sometimes you don't want to boost every single stat of your Pokemon. In the case of my Dratini, I don't want it to have a bunch of special attack, so I don't need to boost its special attack. Same with something like an Amoonguss. I don't want it to be a speedy Pokemon, so I make sure that I don't train in its speed. So, that brings us to our last question here in this little mini-series regarding IVs. How do we get Pokemon with low IVs? It's a great question, and the answer to it is quite simple. When catching Pokemon, their IVs are randomized, most of the time. Sometimes you'll have static encounter Pokemon that will have set IVs. Legendaries are a great example for this. A lot of the time, legendaries will have at least 3 31 IV stats. And that's great. That makes the process of getting some of these Pokemon easier. But when you're catching a wild Pokemon, its stats, every single one of them, is randomized from 0 to 31. And when we try to catch a Pokemon, we'll see that. So here, for example, I'm going to catch a Scatterbug. When we catch it, or when we get into battle with it, its IVs are going to be randomized. And once we catch it, we'll be able to see what those IVs are. Now, for a Pokemon like Scatterbug, it's a special attacker as a Vivillon, which is its final form. We don't really care for it to have a whole lot of physical attack, but we would prefer to have every other stat like special attack, defense, and speed to be as high as they possibly can be. So this Scatterbug, let's go see what its stats are. So it has decent and pretty good stats, which means that they're all pretty low IVs. But the nice thing is that we can go bottle cap this Scatterbug and max out all 5 of its stats that we feel are important. We don't need to max out the physical attack, we just need to do the other ones. By catching Pokemon and even breeding, we can try and get the IVs that we want. And while it may take some time, it isn't an impossible task and it isn't too time consuming. Alright everybody, and that's it for this guide. So in this video, we covered IVs, how we can change them, how to look at them, and what items are useful in helping achieve the desired IVs that we want for Pokemon. Let me know in the comments if there are any questions that you have or anything that I should further clarify, and I will happily clear it up. Thank you for watching and have a great day.